House rules and going it alone. Excuse the rain. I've been trenching to try to keep the office space from taking on water, which it has been for a couple days now, and yeah, hopefully I don't have to cut this short because it's supposed to come in heavy again soon. So, with all the developments and the lack of commentary, at least as far as I'm aware, today from Wizards of the Coast regarding OGL 1.1, I figured this is a good point to talk about house rules and doing things on your own. If you've played role-playing games for any amount of time, at some point you will have house ruled. You may not really be aware of it, but it's probably there. And the nature of 5th edition D&D really supports DM's house ruling. There's a lot of wiggle room. It's not quite a narrative style of play, but compared to something like Pathfinder 2nd edition, there's a lot of room for you as the DM to make a call. And if you make a call that's not in the rules, that's effectively a house rule. Now, one of the great things is once you start recording what your rulings are, then that gives players more security in knowing that you're going to rule the same way if that situation comes up again. If you say everybody can just jump across a 5-foot wide stream without getting their feet wet, I got water on my mind, it will benefit you in the future to remember that under non-stressful situations, you've allowed all characters to make a jump of 5 feet without failure, without risk of failure. And this expands, and the dangers of house ruling is making things more complex than they're needed. And I know I'm one that definitely does that. I get a great idea for how to work something into the game, and then the next thing you know, I've got a page and a half of rules on how I'm going to make rulings on something. Like one thing that D&D 5th edition doesn't have is crafting rules. So creating some type of crafting rules would help players know what's possible for characters that just want to engage in a downtime profession. At least I'm saying that now, and then I'm thinking, oh, did I check the DMG? Because I think there might be there's some downtime rules in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Let me check. Yeah, so the DMG has downtime rules on running a business, and it's a percentile roll to determine if you make money or not over a given period of time. So that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. My brain wants to make it more complex, to put in more, well, if a character is engaging in it with a relevant skill, then they're able to possibly make more money or make the business do better. I didn't see anything quickly on crafting like mundane items, but again, I didn't look too hard just now. That's because on the flip side, especially with my going into 5th edition, I've tried to not engage my normal desire to just create massive amounts of house rules. And I haven't exactly succeeded on that, but I've resisted far more than in the past. which I'll show you an example here in a bit. But the house ruling, I just decided for running my 5th edition campaign, whatever's fun. I'm not going to worry too much about it. If players come up with something, then great. I'll figure it out on the spot. Try to write it down and hopefully remember how it goes. And if not, then I'm counting on some other players remembering. And if they don't, then we'll just readjust at that moment and figure it out. As long as everybody's having fun. The moment that something happens where I make a house rule and then I forget about it and then a player becomes concerned or it takes away from that player's fun, then I'm going to go and I'm going to codify it, put it into a PDF and send it out to the players and go, here's the information that you have and I have and we're working on it. The great thing about house ruling, though, is in effect you're creating your own system at your own table. And you can pick and choose from any system at your table. You're not profiting off of it. You're not, assuming you aren't a DM for hire, you aren't profiting off the changes you're making to the game. You're not publishing it anywhere or putting it online for people to use. It's all for personal use, and we're assuming you've already purchased the books. It's almost like people buying magazines to make collages. They've already purchased the magazine and now they're going to do with it what they want, and that includes cutting it up and rearranging the images for their own personal collage. And I would assume that as long as they don't sell it, they're fine. But even then, I think, well, again, I'm not a lawyer and I don't do that kind of art, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you make an artistic expression of a derivative work, or your work is a derivative of another art. I don't know what the legal ramifications are if you try to sell it. But again, for house ruling, you aren't selling anything. You are making something for your own personal use at the table. Sometime around 2007, myself and another DM for our group, we'd alternate weeks, I believe, at that time, and we played in the Forgotten Realms in the same timeline. So what one character group did when I DM'd would have effects on the world, or would be included in the world lore if the other characters under the other DM went and tried to cross paths with any of those timelines. And so you can see here, this is a simple PDF document we put together. It's 215 pages. Now I'm going to try my best to blur out the images, because we threw in images from all over the web that we felt, or maybe I shouldn't use we, because I think at this point the actual putting it into a PDF was on me, and so this is really my first PDF engagement. So there's a lot of formatting and color use that is horrific in here, and again, this is a work for our own personal players, and I'm not going to go into too much of the stuff because some of it is collecting the information that we'd use repeatedly, either as the DMs or for the other players, and some of it is straight lifting right out of the books to organize it in a way that it's just look at the core books here, and hopefully I'll blur out that image. we're using the complete psionic. This is all 3.5 Dungeons and Dragons, complete psionic, Dungeon Master's Guide, Epic Level Handbook, expanded psionics handbook, Player's Handbook, Powers of Faerun, and Savage Species. So all of these we're considering as core books, and we're collecting a lot of the data from those books and putting it into one resource so we can easily access it. And the thing to note is myself and the other dungeon master purchased each one of those books. And then on top of that, all the players bought the Player's Handbook. Most of them had Powers of Faerun, maybe Savage Species, and not sure about the other ones. So this was never intended as a workaround so that the other players wouldn't have to purchase the books. It was just intended of, hey, you've got the information, you can look at any the expanded information within the book, but here's the reference data that you need if you're making a character based off of that. So here's the index. And it's noted that the entries listed with a parentheses H are house rules. So bonus spells from attributes is house rule. Yeah, sad to say we did comeliness back in the day. It was complex, where it's weighted on your physical characteristics plus your... Anyway, it's one of those things where having a rule for something feels really good to someone like me, but it's not always the best way to go. And just letting characters decide if their character is attractive or not is completely viable. And I mean, it's another calculation you got to do for every NPC on the off chance that another player is going to ask, oh, are they attractive? And then you're like, oh, hold on, let me check. And if you didn't, then you'd need to, because you've set it down. But if you house rule that players can just decide how attractive they are, their characters are, and that applies to the DM and their NPCs, this character's attractive, this character's not attractive, there you go. It definitely speaks to some underlying psychological, I dare say maybe problematic, but yeah. So I'm embarrassed that I have comeliness at this time, but I'm also very proud of coming up with comeliness formulas based on attributes. Anyway, so sanity house rule, bloodline house rules. I don't remember that. I don't remember what it is. That might, like, in any of these house rules, might be pulled from other game systems. Like, I'm not saying any of these house rules are created whole cloth out of myself or the other dungeon master or the other players when we were gaming then, out of our imaginations. Some of them were. I'm pretty sure comeliness was something that I had been working on constantly, always including any. See, it's because I'm embarrassed. That's what it is. Anyway, so yeah, I don't remember what bloodlines are. Social class templates. Social classes we incorporated in 3.5. There were non-hero classes of a commoner, expert, or kind of merchant class, middle class, and noble class. And so we incorporated it in our 3.5 gameplay that at first level you actually started at second level, and your first level was commoner, expert, or noble, and then you took your character heroic class and just went up from there. And it was just kind of this is what your character was before they became a heroic adventurer, much like 5th edition backgrounds. And I think Pathfinder also has backgrounds, or it's something very similar. It's, after Ancestry, it's backgrounds, I think. Lore points and knowledge, skill points, knowledge local, so you would have a default skill that would increase as you went along. that represented your knowledge in the local area in which you grew up, as well as lore points that you could put into other knowledge skills. Starting languages we changed. Starting skill checklist we changed, and I'm not sure what checklist means. Yeah, it's literally been. Let's see, we made this in 2007, and then I don't know, 2008 or 9 is when we went over and tried fourth edition for a year and a half. So yeah, I'm not sure. So yeah, let's say 2009 at the most. So it's been 13 years since I've looked at this until today. Let's see. Races, bloodlines, reducing level limits, some dwarven traits, as they would be called today, stillness, and dwarves. We made it difficult for dwarves to ride horses. Don't see that on any of the other species, the gnomes, which should be there. Half-elven skill changed, half-orcish skill changed, master character level table. Again, I don't know what that is. Hit points. Basically, I remember the hit points are only the house rules basically just stating that we gave maximum hit points. You didn't have to roll for how many hit points you had, but then it included the addendum, the caveat that the DM could do the same for any NPC or monster. So don't count on it always being rolled. It could be a maxed out hit point monster if the DM felt that's what was needed. Let's see, spontaneous domain spells. We included either more or new spells for that. Yeah, you can see we include all this information. Sorcerers, eschew materials feat, changed that somehow. Scroll use. Skills, we go into lore points, class skills, we changed some things. Skill critical successes and failures. And then expanded descriptions for the skills, crafting time for crafting, house ruled. Healing and insanity. Boy, that was the other thing after I got too caught up in comeliness. But sanity, house rule. I like to include a bit of horror in my campaigns, but I didn't use it that much. And so that's one of the things where it's like, I really like the idea of having sanity as something that characters have to watch out for and track and have their characters deal with, but I don't remember it coming up that much. And part of that, or all of that, is my fault for forgetting in the moment in an encounter that, oh, you need to make a sanity skill check, or sanity check. So knowledge, monster knowledge, is a thing that we included in this expanded descriptions of various knowledge skills. Let's see, ride mount size modifiers. So here would be probably for if you're a small sized creature having difficulty mounting a horse. Language ranks, so you'd get proficiency in language, and you'd spend some skill points, the additional lore points that we included, so that you could increase your proficiency in a specific language. And so if you had a rank 1 in a language, that meant, where's the bathroom? How do I get to this building? That kind of thing. Very basic language ability or proficiency in that language. And then I think rank 4 was, you're right, you can write poetry. You could write poetry if your character was poetic. And then a list of all the Faerunian languages that we knew about and what alphabets were used. Spellcraft methods. Don't remember what that's about. Let's see, feats. We included circle magic as a new feat. Magic item creation, homebrewed, or again, it might not be a new feat. It might be we just homebrewed what the official circle magic feat did. I don't remember if there is an official circle magic or not. Probably. Meta magic component casting, homebrewed that. Yeah, and here's combat. We used facing, combat in water, all the details. So we'd have this quick reference document all in one place that we'd be able to just go, okay, wait, what's everybody fell in a lake. How do we do this? Here's the insanity laws, types of insanity, recovering, insanity types, mental disorders, and then critical hits, homebrewed, and then I remember, yeah, I don't know if we pulled half of it from one place and then made a bunch of adjustments. I know for that section I did my own artwork, so I can show that, which is just, it's horrible. Adventuring, action points, encumbrance, environment, leadership and cohorts. We did some home brewing there. Time, adventuring in time, some home brewing on how that worked. Home brewing on cure potions. I think we maxed cure potions. We just said they did the max hit, provided the max hit points. Meta magic components, cure spells. I think, I don't know. I get maybe we maxed those out too. Yeah, campaign information, and then some appendix. Put in history of Faerun. List of 3.5 affiliations, organizations, and other campaign materials. Would be nice to have a hanging indent there. Other source material. And then printouts. We included a day table so you could track what happens during the day. And then here's the note of abbreviations of the books. I'm not watching to see if I'm blocking some of it, so I apologize if some of that got blocked. Yeah, but so here's the books we used, and except for the Book of Erotic Fantasy, I think both DMs, we both bought all of these. So all of these, I mean, behind me, I think over there is like the 3.5. We purchased all these books happily and to use in our own games, and then codified a lot of it and put it all together in a 215-page PDF document. All right, so here's the start of the critical hits. We didn't use this a lot, and probably for good, especially on the DM side. Character may attempt a called shot to deal an uber critical hit to a particular area of a creature's body. Character declares the severity of the uber critical that they are attempting and the location they're aiming for. Then you consult. So if you're doing a called shot against the head or the abdomen, you take a -4 to your attack. If the attack succeeds, the attack does no damage, but a critical effect is achieved. The severity dice are determined by the called shot and not the weapon size versus creature size. Again, not my best writing either. Threat roll is also a critical hit. An uber critical hit may occur. Oh, I remember. 3.5 had threat, and then would you roll again? And if that's what it was. So 3.5, each weapon had a range where critical would occur. So on a roll of a 20 on one weapon, but on like a rapier, I think it was like 18, 19, and 20, then you could get a critical. And so if a threat roll, if you hit that critical range, is also a critical hit, so I think we rolled twice to confirm, like you had to hit on the second roll to make sure, and then it was a critical, something like that. If the threat roll is also a critical hit, an uber critical hit may occur. So I think if the threat roll, it's been a very long time. Some of you that are still playing 3.5 might remember what that means. And yeah, and I hate the tables with the yellow. That's just, that's gross. And like the formatting, like, oof. Then they got to make a fortitude save. DC equals damage dealt, but again up here, no damage. I don't know. So here's the uber critical hit location, and that's if you didn't call it, right? So if the threat roll is also a critical hit, an uber critical hit may occur. So yeah, if you rolled a threat and then rolled again, and that was a critical, I think that's how that worked. Like if you rolled a threat and then the next, the threat range being 18 to 20 on a d20 with your rapier. If you rolled that, and then on the second roll you also hit that range, the 18 to 20, then that is a critical hit, and then the creature that takes damage has to make a fortitude save against the DC of the damage dealt, not including energy damage or the like. Deflection and luck bonuses to AC all add 1/2 their rating round down as a bonus to the fortitude save. So you can see that's too much. I mean, unless you've got a place to put it all. Armor and enhancement bonuses to AC, natural armor, deflection bonuses, and luck bonuses to AC all add half their rating. So if you got a +2 armor, then you'd get a +1 on this fortitude save. And then because it wasn't a called, it's a randomly determined. You'd roll d12 depending on the type of creature it is. And then weapon size and severity. Yeah, so weapons have a size category. There's more hit locations based on creature type. Uber critical hits. Roll the indicated severity dice and consult the Uber critical hits table below. And so these are the different effects. Non-lethal damage, but for example, Uber critical was 34 and a 5 was rolled on the Uber critical result saver, then the creature takes 8 points of non-lethal damage on top of it. I don't see how you roll on this table. Oh, because it's the size, and that's the dice you roll. And then, yeah, okay. These are the different effects that can occur. You could get pain effects, bleeding like a wounding weapon, specific location effects, con damage, dex AC, all, limb is useless. General description of the severity of the wound are given here, and so that's the description over here. And so here's where you roll what type of critical hit it is based on weapon size. So if you had a large giant using, I think if no, it's just size category of the creature versus the other creature. So if you had a large creature using a longsword for its size against a medium-sized creature, you'd roll 1d12 plus 1 if you got an uber critical. So the most you could get is a 13, which means it would if it takes non-lethal. Do we roll? No, you'd take all of this. So you'd multiply the damage by three quarters, 75%, and it would take that additional non-lethal damage. It would bleed then 3 hit points per round. It would take 3 points of con damage, 3 points of dexterity damage, no dex to AC. Limb is useless if you hit a limb. Yeah, I don't know if you have all of these. No, it looks like nothing occurs there. No pain effect, which is weird for their. It feels like it should. Each one above should be included, so it should be nauseated and stunned for 3 rounds, or 1d3 rounds. Description: bone crushed, vital organs nearly destroyed. And then minimum cure. So the minimum cure of this would be cure critical wounds plus restoration spell. And then Book of Vile Damage. Vile damage from the Book of Vile Darkness, and then it gets into other stuff. And it looks like I took out my pictures. Okay, so that's an example of house ruling. That's an example of house ruling. And I think that's probably too much. Like the critical hits, it was fun to come up with it, but the complexity was more than what our group enjoyed. And that's just talking about dealing with it in the moment, the amount of work that you'd have to do to find a result for something. And in most cases, critical hits aren't good for a heroic game because it'll affect the players more often than not, especially over the long run, because at some point a bad guy is going to get it on the players. The players might get it on the bad guys, but the bad guys come and go. The players are always there, and so yeah, not everybody likes the idea of, oh, my character now has to wear an eye patch and doesn't have depth perception and takes a penalty on perception checks. So, but some might, if your group wants that, go for it. And I'm sure there are simpler ways to do it than that. The key thing that you need to know when you're house ruling, or to keep in mind, is you want to make sure it's fair, it's balanced, it's not overpowered. So if you're making a new class, you want the abilities that it gains and the power of those abilities to be on par with the other classes. So if a character class gets, like the fighter gets extra attack at 5th level, then you don't want to make another class that gets an extra attack at 3rd level. Or if you do, then you want to make sure that it doesn't have similar bonuses that the fighter gets for combat. You want things to be balanced. You don't want things to be overpowered. You want to make it so if a character has a choice between fighter and this new martial class that you're creating, and the rain's coming in, then you want to make sure that the best version you could make would be one where the player is torn between, should I take fighter or should I take this new class? It shouldn't be, oh, well, clearly I'm going to take this new class because I get this, this, and this, and fighter doesn't get any of that or doesn't get it until 5th level type of thing. You want to make sure that your new class is balanced in a way that a player is very interested in taking it, but is unsure because also they like something else in another class. And it may just be a thematic theme to that new class that is what drives the player to it, and not the actual abilities and powers. And as you homebrew, you will go through iterations, because there will be times where you're like, okay, this is how we're going to do it, or this is how this rule is going to come down in these situations, and then you hit those situations again and you realize this house rule doesn't work as intended, and so you will need to say, hey, I need to make a change to this house rule because it's not good, so you got to make a change, which is fine. And as long as your players know that you're trying to be above board with the rules that you're creating, then they will respect that. And the other goal is to just not make it take up too much time at the table when you got to make changes. So make a change on the fly, say, hey, you're going to work on updating it for next time to make sure that it works better, and then before the next game, give the players that information. Once you go it alone with your house rules, you'll find that you no longer need any official content. You have the books you're interested in using, and now your home brewing will surpass much of what is being published. Maybe not surpass, but it will be adequate, satisfactory. It will be fun. And as long as it's fun, then, who cares if you don't get the next newest book right on time? And that's one thing that can help the overall industry of role-playing games, is if everybody isn't going and buying the product as soon as it gets out, if they're waiting and reading official reviews from other, from journalists and from other what game review companies. EN World would be a great place to go check to see if somebody's reviewed a product and their thoughts on it. If you wait and you go and you look and things are getting downvoted, so to speak, you can decide not to purchase that product. And in not purchasing that product, that tells the company that, hey, they've got to make better stuff for you to purchase it. And I mean, that's largely why 5th edition hasn't captured my interest in purchasing a lot of their books, at least the latest ones. I think Xanathar's Guide or Tasha's Cauldron are the last two that I bought. No, I bought Wild Beyond the Witchlight, which, my personal opinion is, and this is how I differ from a lot of groups, I think, or a lot of the core people that buy books. I'm not interested in adventures, published adventures. I like making my own adventures with my own NPCs and my own world, and letting the players engage in that, and then figuring out how that works and how, that's how I like to play. I don't like to play published adventures too much. Caveat: I'm running Curse of Strahd for my 5th edition group right now, and it's a lot of fun. But I find myself wishing that I could make Curse of Strahd go a little bit faster to get them back to my campaign world, and so that I can, continue on the stories that they've already started there before I trap them in Barovia. But that's the thing. So, I don't know, where did I put it? Oh, I put it over here. Like, I don't like adventure books, like modules. I'll buy them occasionally and, mine them for information and ideas. But overall, I don't use adventure books too much. And to me, and this is going to be grognardy probably, but one of the best eras of Dungeons and Dragons was early 2nd edition Forgotten Realms books. And I think the crowning achievement is Janelle Jacquet's Savage Frontier. And hopefully I got her last name right, Jacquet's. Jacquet? Jacquet's. If you can get a copy of this, you can see mine is just, it's well used. But if you can get a copy of this, this is the top pinnacle of Dungeons and Dragons content, because it is filled with information about a region. So it's just about the Forgotten Realms North, from basically not including, like it touches on, but not including Waterdeep, north all the way up to Icewind Dale, and from the Sword Coast there, that far north, all the way east to the edges of the Anarok. It's been a while since I've said that name. So, the High Forest, the Trollmoors. It came out either right as, or it knew that Salvatore was publishing the first Crystal Shard novel. So it includes it includes references to Drizzt, Bruenor, Wolfgar. I had a friend early on when we were 14, 15, and he created a character that was modeled after Wolfgar or Wolffang, and his character's name was the other one that I'm saying that isn't the official one. Anyway, and then on top of that, there was the City System box set for the Forgotten Realms that was based off of, like, this is just the booklet from within the box set, and it had Waterdeep. It had like this, was it 10 maps? It was 10 or 8 full-size poster maps of Waterdeep, and it was huge, and I love maps. And so the city system just includes like random tables for things to happen in a city, and and then what the buildings were on the maps because they were numbered. But then the Savage Frontier book, that includes the table of content is introduction, Savage Frontier overview, and then it talks about the peoples of the North. So it describes the general groups, almost ethnicities, that live throughout the North, from Waterdeep above on the Sword Coast to the Anorok. Then it's got, let's see, and that's 10 pages. There's 10 pages of the peoples of the North, and then 5, 6, 7 pages of cities, towns, and villages. So it describes all the various little towns and villages. But so like you just in the beginning, in the overview, it's got unusual encounters, 13 or 14, 1 to 2 paragraph entries on basically, encounters or adventure ideas. One's called The Flames in the Twilight. The adventurers encounter an outlying farm in flames near an agricultural town. Dark figures are visible, skulking in red light of the flames, and fearful voice cries out in terror. Strange green lights stream out through the windows and cracks between the boards of the farmhouse. So, and that's almost all that this book is it's bits of information that include some descriptive text that is open-ended for the DM to do whatever they want with. And it is 64 pages, 2 maps of just the greatest stuff ever. And it's fantastic. And Janelle Jacques is, I think Janelle, she's fantastic. Like this is my favorite thing in all the world, this book. And generally, that's how well I take care of things that I love, is I use them so that they just fall apart. So I don't really remember how I got sidetracked onto talking about the Savage Frontier, other than it's a great book, and if you can find a copy, get it and mine it for all the information you can. Because, bringing it back around, I don't purchase adventures too much, and most of the 5th edition stuff has been at least half adventure in the books. So it doesn't appeal to me in that regard as a DM. If you want to give me a page or two of adventure hooks that I can then, put together, great. And, and I understand there's a lot, with all the pop culture references, or, the bloom of Dungeons & Dragons in pop culture is bringing in a lot of new players. And so a lot of new players aren't going to, like, if you're a new player, you still are learning how to run an adventure, let alone how to make an adventure. So, like, I'm not faulting any company for making adventure books, but again, it doesn't appeal to me to purchase a whole book of one adventure. I like the snippets, the bits and pieces that I can then use to inform my own campaign. Do I want to use this? How do I want to use this? Where do I want to take this? Do I want to weave this into something the players are currently dealing with? Or do I want this to be something new that may sidetrack them from where they're going? All of that, to me, is more valuable than a bunch of adventures that are designed to take characters from X level to the next level. It's too video gamey to me. The video game-ness of whole books that are designed to take characters from one level to 10th level or whatnot, it just really, it doesn't satisfy my imagination. It's too pre-planned, because I feel like any good adventure needs to have a clear break, and then at that point it's okay, how did the PC's actions affect the world? And it does that change the next adventure and how it could possibly resolve. Because if the players find out a way to kill the big bad guy in the very first set or in the very first adventure, then future adventures are moot. If the players decide they aren't interested in following up on the clues to take them to the next adventure, then the rest of the book, what do I use it for? Other than, here's how that, I'd have to figure out how that resolves within the campaign world without those players. And unfortunately, the easiest and cheapest way to do it is just to assume that another group of adventurers went on it and succeeded at it. And I don't know, that gets boring too. So that's why I like making my own adventures and just for my own campaigns so that I can tailor it to the group. Anyway, so yeah, this is a long way of saying once you figure out how to homebrew and how to do it within the balance of whatever game system you're running, you'll find that any book that you purchase after that is just going to be something to inform you how to run the game and not necessarily a playbook that you just follow so that you aren't running the game. The book is running the game as long as you're following it. I feel like that could be said better, but I feel like it's hitting on something important. That when you buy a preset adventure, especially the ones that are supposed to take you from first level to 10th or 5th level to 15th or whatever, when you purchase such a long arcing adventure book, you're giving up a lot of your power as a DM over the campaign world. Because when you purchase a book, you're making the financial investment that then compels you to some extent to follow the book. And by doing so, you're just your level of engagement is reduced. And I think the greatest thing about being a dungeon master or a game master is being able to adjust on the fly reactions of the world to the player character's actions. Which, if you've played Dungeons and Dragons, you know the player character's actions are never what you think they're going to be, and they always have unintended consequences. So, my advice: start recognizing when you're homebrewing in your campaign, and then codify that in a written work that you can give to your other players so that they can reference it. Oh yeah, I remember this is how we're running this bit of lore or this bit of information or this rule. And by doing that, you will understand the mechanics of the game you're playing much better, which will allow you to improv the game much better. More much better. And the better you get at improving and adjusting on the fly, the more fun your players are going to have. And that's the key to everything. So thanks again for watching Physical Gaming. Like and subscribe. Clickety click. Stay dry. Hopefully you stay drier than I'm doing currently. And yeah, Happy New Year.